The jungle was supposed to be silent at night, yet the darkness trembled with muffled cries, the scrape of chains, and a voice the seal hadn't heard in over a decade. She froze mid-step, breath locking in her chest, as the impossible truth hit her like a punch. The prisoner begging for help was the same woman who had once forged her into an elite warrior. In that moment, the mission stopped being an extraction. It became something far more personal. And in the flicker of a dying lantern, the seal realized she wasn't just fighting to save a hostage, she was about to repay a debt carved into her bones. Years earlier, this instructor had been legendary, ruthless, brilliant, a mentor who pushed recruits to the absolute brink and then further. She taught them to survive the cold, the depths, the silence. She had shaped the SEAL's instincts, discipline, and resolve. But she had disappeared from service without a trace, swallowed by rumors of a classified mission gone wrong. Now, standing in enemy territory with rain dripping off her gear and adrenaline shaking her hands, the SEAL understood why no one ever found her. The women who held her were the kind who wanted secrets buried forever. As old memories surged back, every drill, every punishment, every word of hard-earned respect, the SEAL made a vow to herself. No matter the cost, she would bring her mentor home. The SEAL moved deeper into the jungle, every step a calculated risk as rain hammered the leaves like tiny drums. Her team spread out behind her, silent shadows in the undergrowth, but she led with attention no one else understood. The hostage signal they picked up 2 days ago seemed routine, another captured operative, another extraction. But the brief audio clip they intercepted earlier that night changed everything. The broken voice pleading for help carried the unmistakable cadence, the same sharp tone that once barked commands at recruits until their lungs burned. As she navigated the flooded terrain, flashes of the past kept surfacing: the cold ocean swims at dawn, the merciless obstacle courses, and the gravelly voice telling her pain builds the woman. Discipline sharpens the blade. Lightning cracked across the sky, revealing a stretch of barbed wire up ahead, proof she was close. She signaled the team to halt and crouched behind a fallen log, scanning the perimeter through night vision optics. Guards paced lazily near the cages, unaware of the storm approaching them. But beneath the urgency of the mission, something else pulled her forward, an instinctive drive to save the only woman who had never allowed her to quit. She slipped past the first guard in a silent blur, a knife sweeping quickly and cleanly before the woman could even gasp. The SEAL's movement was fluid, almost rehearsed, as though every skill she ever learned had been preparing her for this exact moment. Her team followed with synchronized precision, taking out sentries and disabling alarms like ghosts passing through steel. But her heartbeat kept climbing, fueled by something stronger than adrenaline dread. What condition would she find her instructor in? Was she even still alive? As she approached the cages, a harsh beam of lantern light cut across the mud. She lowered herself and crawled forward until she could see shadows inside the rusted bars. A hunched figure lay motionless, wrists bound, ribs visible through torn clothing. But even under the layers of grime and scars, she recognized the posture, the stubborn refusal to collapse completely. She whispered the code phrase only they had shared during training, a phrase meant to break mental resistance during high-stress drills. The prisoner stirred, slowly, her head lifted, revealing bruised eyes that widened in disbelief. "You," the instructor croaked. It was a single word, but it carried a decade of history. And for a split second, both women felt the years collapse between them. The instructor tried to stand but collapsed again, and the SEAL rushed forward, breaking the cage lock with a controlled blow. She caught the older woman before she hit the ground. Despite the bruises, the instructor still carried that same stubborn fire in her gaze, the fire that had once terrified every recruit. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, coughing violently, but the SEAL shook her head. "You taught me never to abandon a teammate." She signaled the medic to start patching her up, but there was no time for full treatment. Enemy reinforcements could be minutes away. The SEAL lifted her mentor over her shoulder, the weight awkward yet familiar, like carrying the memory of every punishment run she'd ever been assigned. As they pushed back toward the extraction route, the jungle shifted. The soft patter of rain turned into footsteps. Dozens, maybe more. Gunfire erupted behind them, forcing the team into defensive formation. The SEAL shielded her instructor with her own body, returning fire with controlled bursts. Every movement felt like a test she had trained for under this very woman. And in the chaos, she realized something profound. This wasn't just a rescue. This was the final lesson proving she had become the warrior her mentor once demanded she be. They sprinted toward the cliffs where Evac was supposed to meet them, but the enemy forces were closing fast. The SEAL's comms crackled with static. The storm was interfering, and backup was 20 minutes out. 20 minutes they didn't have. She led the team through a narrow ravine, using the terrain to funnel the pursuing soldiers, buying precious seconds. But the instructor was weakening, her breaths shallow and uneven. The SEAL tightened her grip around her, feeling every tremor. For a moment, the memory of her instructor shouting at her during Hell Week flickered through her mind. When your body quits, your mind pushes. When your mind quits, your purpose carries you. That purpose was now keeping them both alive. A grenade exploded nearby, shaking the ground. The SEAL threw herself over her mentor, absorbing the blast of dirt and debris. When she stood, ears ringing, she saw enemy soldiers advancing across the ridge. With swift orders, her team set up defensive positions, turning the ravine into a choke point. The firefight intensified, flashes of muzzle fire lighting the wet stone walls. It felt like an unwinnable fight, yet the SEAL refused to retreat. Not after everything this woman had taught her. Not when she was so close to bringing her home. Just when the team's ammunition began to run thin, a thunderous roar echoed across the canyon. A helicopter swept over the ridge, its spotlight piercing the storm like a divine strike. Reinforcements rappelled down, opening heavy fire on the enemy lines. The SEAL wasted no time. She hoisted her instructor again and rushed toward the rope ladder being lowered from the aircraft. The older woman gripped her shoulder weakly, whispering, "You became everything I hoped you would." For the first time in years, the SEAL felt a surge of emotion break through her hardened composure. The team secured themselves as the helicopter lifted, rising above the jungle that had nearly claimed them. Below, flames and smoke consumed the last signs of the enemy camp. The instructor rested against the SEAL's chest, eyes drifting shut, but this time from relief, not defeat. As the aircraft stabilized, the SEAL finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. She looked at the woman who had once shaped her entire identity and realized she had come full circle from student to warrior, from recruit to rescuer. The storm cleared as they flew toward base, revealing a quiet dawn. For the first time in years, the instructor was going home, and it was her student who made it possible. As the helicopter cut across the quieting sky, the SEAL felt the weight of the mission finally loosen from her shoulders. Below them, the jungle that had swallowed her mentor for years now shrank into nothing more than shadow and distance. For the first time since stepping into that darkness, she allowed herself to look at the instructor not as a legend, not as the unbreakable force who had shaped her, but as a woman who had survived the impossible. The instructor opened her eyes briefly, and in that tired, bruised gaze was something the SEAL had never seen before: pride. A slow nod passed between them, silent but unmistakable, the kind of acknowledgement that needed no words. When they landed at the base, medics rushed forward, but the instructor kept one hand on the SEAL's arm, refusing to let go until she spoke. "You didn't just rescue me," she whispered. "You honored every lesson I ever taught." And as they carried her away, the SEAL realized this mission wasn't the end, it was the bridge between who she once was and the warrior she had become. The reunion had been unexpected, the mission brutal, but in the end, it proved a simple truth. Sometimes the greatest battles are the ones fought to bring someone home.